short lecture, I will present some tools, issues, and challenges surrounding the survey and the documentation of built heritage. So, architectural or heritage documentation goes beyond the strict framework of the survey. In addition to data acquisition, the notion of documentation extends to the architectural representation and the processing of archival sources of an object. The documentation work is intended to reflect the relative state of knowledge about a given object. The digitalization must be considered as a step in the documentation work for the organization, the archiving, and the special referencing of heterogeneous information. If the act of surveying often refers to acquisition methods and instruments, it's obviously reductive to consider it only by its technical dimension. It corresponds to an action by which certain perceptible attributes of an object are studied and represented. Indeed, beyond the process of collecting measurements, the architectural survey can be considered as a more complete process involving the acquisition, the data processing, and their representations. This implies also a cognitive and sensitive act requiring interpretation, synthesis, and analysis of the object studied. In this sense, it integrates a deep analytical dimension. Leaving aside certain singular postures, the survey of an architectural object presupposes a work that implies the understanding of the general proportion of volumes, the measurement of volumes and elements in 3 dimensions, the identification of the architectural logic by examining the structure and its relationship to the spaces and the building envelope, the acquisition of surface data on materials, the identification and location of alteration and or deformation of the current state of the building. And of course, the observation of compositional logic by highlighting the dominant axis, rhythms, and repetitions. Concerning this last aspect, the history of architectural survey shows us a practice in which drawing and representation are also used to express the compositional logic of the building. As the survey made by Viollet-le-Duc expresses, the geometric composition drawing on the right side of the image explicitly refers to the reverse engineering work involved in the architectural survey. In this case, the drawing appears clearly as a means and an object of knowledge. As we can see, the requirements of the architectural survey lie partly in the nature of the information collected. Whether in architecture, archaeology, or art history, the practice of survey is a means of consolidating knowledge through the collection and the organization of information around a given object. In that sense, we can speak about documenting an architecture. At the level of the built heritage documentation, digital phenomenon has integrated the discipline for nearly 30 years now. In this context, many tools and methods were adapted or developed with a benefit for the acquisition, the visualization, and the analysis. The democratization of many acquisition techniques permit today to create digitization composed of several millions of data, having a great visual and metrical coherence with the observed artifact. We can evoke 2 main techniques used today. On one hand, we have the laser grammetry or the terrestrial laser scanning. an acquisition technique that uses a light source, the laser, as a means to measure the space surrounding the survey station. Laser grammetric digitization allows producing point clouds constituted by several millions of 3D coordinates. On the other hand, we have the photogrammetry, another measurement technique using photographs as a survey tool. This technique is based on the principle of triangulating homologous points to a set of photographs illustrating the same object. We can see the result of a photogrammetric survey with the 3D model integrating the colorimetric values of the photographs. As described above, 3D digitization must primarily serve as a base to document the current state of building and support the work of analysis and observation. The point cloud from a photogrammetric survey has no cognitive value as such. As we can see in the survey of a church located in Brussels, the work of representation only makes sense if it leads to a gain in intelligibility. In a way, and as I said before, we can consider the architectural survey process as a reverse engineering project, which aims, in particular, to understand the compositional principle mobilized by the architects. It is therefore a question of mobilizing 3D digitization as a means of investigation. This is particularly the case in this example, where the compositional drawing of the object is highlighted and in correspondence with the exploded axonometry of the project. The object is open, dissected, to convey both information relating to the plan and information of the facades or the section. In archaeology, art history or architecture, new techniques and digital documentation constitute a major issue for the preservation, monitoring, and digital archiving of built heritage. Nevertheless, in this technological context, it's necessary to distinguish architectural representation from data visualization. So considering built heritage survey also through the lens of analysis and communication is necessary to understand how the digital representation of architecture could become a scientific tool for knowledge sharing. Whatever the degree of sophistication of the digital acquisition tools used, heritage documentation needs to be confronted with the cognitive and cultural issues of the architectural representation.